Okay, no, I want you to stay close because we want to know what's going on here. It's been a long day for me, and it's continuing another meeting I have on the north end at 7:30. But I just came from a meeting with the folks from FEC, and I see some of them here in the back. I want to say Tony, did I get that right at all? Keith. And I thought it was a meeting with one executive, and all of a sudden there was like 5 of them in this conference room table, but it went well. It went well. I don't know that I can explain exactly where we are, but in general terms, I'm going to try my best because I've got to be someplace that I got to leave here at 6:30 to get to the northern end of town. A meeting I could not avoid having. Basically, the area from 48th to 80th, I think we have a meeting of the minds as the general purpose of keeping that totally green. Okay, and I know in the charrettes that we had, that was the preference of most of you. The area from 48th to 40th is still under discussion. They have reduced the overall density substantially. I don't know how much of that Lourdes has been submitted to you all.
We're going to present that.
You're going to present that. Okay, so she'll get into the specifics. Now, I don't want to say anything derogatory about developers, but it is an experience that I've had, and you may have read about in other cases. I'm not saying it applies to this one, that developers a lot of times come in asking for a lot, and then they slowly reduce in negotiations. But at least they're going in the right direction from our perspective. The situation 48th to 40th is a little complicated. I did meet with the homeowners from 48th to 46, and I hear some possible accommodations for those 2 blocks, and that's very important because that association is very active. I do know that we do have at least one of the councilmen from commissioners from South Miami. Is that Commissioner Harris that I see back? Oh, there's the mayor. Okay. You didn't bring any duct tape today to keep me here, which is a good thing because I've got to be out of here at 6:30, Mayor. So now the vehicle, the way in which all of this would take place is extremely complicated. It might involve some of the neighbors organized by Lisa contributing in some way or another. We'll take the checks, you can leave them right there. It might involve a community development district or a special taxing district of some sort, and it will definitely involve substantial amounts of money to come from the county, existing monies that we have, which I think last time I told you we were splitting $3.5 million for the 2 districts, so that's 1.7. That still doesn't get us very close to the figure that we're talking about for the acquisition. So in the legislature until yesterday, we were moving fairly well towards an allocation from the state of about $3.4 million. Again, divided into 2, that's 1.7 for each district. So we were somewhere in the vicinity of $3.4 million towards a pot that has been stated to be a lot more than that, somewhere in the vicinity of $20 million. So what vehicle will be used, whether it be a special taxing district, whether it would be a trust, whether it would be federal monies, but I know that they have involved at a much higher level than myself, the mayor, and he is committed, as is Commissioner Sosa and myself. And what I hear from FEC, I'm very happy with what I hear, which is that they, in their development plans, they see this as a green line all the way from 48 to 80. So that basic purpose from a development standpoint has been accomplished. So I think you can give yourselves a round of applause. None of that is yet cast in concrete or anything like that, so I'm not saying that we're in the promised land. We haven't reached it yet necessarily, but we're certainly heading in the right direction. And once again, I'm available. You know my email. and you know that I'm accessible. From my staff, again, we have a large contingent. We have Ella, who heads the South Miami operation, my chief of staff. Ricardo Gonzalez, you all know Janelle J, because she's my transportation guru. Very properly attired for the rain, and the wizard, J.C. Garrido, so he does all those beautiful renderings. And I see Frankie in the back. I think we were supposed to do some picture taking, but I'm not sure we're ready for that today. Lourdes?
No, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. I just want to welcome you all again. Thank you for coming back out to be with us. I'm going to just go ahead and introduce our staff member to give you the presentation. You remember Shailendra Singh from our last meeting, so he's gonna give you a brief presentation.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. And I see a lot of familiar faces, a lot of new ones too. So I'm going to try and just walk you through, for the new ones, what exactly happened at the Charrette. The entire study is a 6-mile corridor, of course, all the way from Blue Lagoon down to 80th. But for District 7, these are 3 main 1-mile, 3-mile in total corridor that we looked at in particular. Again, take a closer look. It's from Bird Road to Miller Road is one section, and the Miller Road to Sunset was another section, and then Sunset all the way to 80th was the 3 sections that were looked at the day of the Charrette. We also had all the underlying base maps for each of these 3 sections, which included the existing land use, the future land use according to the CDMP being the Comprehensive Development Master Plan, and also the zoning for each of these 3 sections, 4, 5, and 6. So those were available at the time of the Charrette when people looked at each of them. We had on March 9th at 6 p.m. right here in this room, we had a kickoff presentation, and the commissioner kicked it off. And immediately after that, all of you guys, the ones that were here, and for the new ones, we had about 200 people that day, based on the signing sheet, and everybody sat around tables, drew, color. As you can see, some of them were really excited also about it, up on the table. And either they drew or they wrote their ideas. There was enough, like about 10 or 12 people on each table, on each map. They all sat down depending on which area they were more interested in of the 3 sections. There were maps for each 3 sections available. And people, again, like I said, wrote their ideas. There was one facilitator on each table, but his or her job that day was not to write or draw, but to get ideas from the community. And as you can see, we had a lot of colorful maps. And then, after about an hour and a half of that, each table presented their ideas to the rest of the room. This is very important because here is when you start to see a consensus build up about things, and it's very important. These base maps that you see in the back become the basis for us, the designers, to work on for more concrete plans. Again, as you can see, we had about 20 tables. Even the developer FECI had one table that they worked on, and they presented their ideas too, which is important for the community to listen in and ask them questions if there are any. But immediately after this day of the Charrette, we didn't go back, and these are, again, all the maps. It's kind of difficult to see, but we'll probably, after a week or 2, we will have this online so you can actually download each map. Since then, as you can see, right below those maps, we quantified everything, like down to each little detail, all the comments that each table had. So for this table, all these comments that you see below are what this table talked about when they presented it or what they wrote down. Again, there are about 19 of those maps. A lot of ideas, and including, like I said, one map which was the FECI option of design. So all this is public record. You'll be able to get your hands on it if you want to go back, check anything. And after that, for the next 3 days, We didn't go back to our offices. Staff stayed and worked at the Gypsum Bethel Community Center on 10th, 11th, and 12th. We worked till late, till about 8 o'clock, till they had to, like, the place had to throw us out. But we were there so that you guys that came on the day of the charrette, would still come back, look over our shoulders to make sure that whatever you had told us, we were doing it according to that. And also, as you can see, there were people that were either they had not come on the day of the charrette, they had the opportunity to come by and write their ideas, add to it. There were a lot of people that came to the charrette, but some of you remember on a whole bunch of other things, they wanted to come back and add to it. And as you can see, there were a lot of community that actually wanted to sit and design. We had the mayor also there, and you can see designers that were not part of the staff but wanted to participate and put their ideas in. And even FECI had put together a table for themselves, and they drew their ideas. And the good thing about that was so that people that walked in would come to them, look over their shoulders, ask them questions about what they were proposing. This was also the site of some meetings also, which was very good for us, the designers. We would kind of, as while we're still working, we would listen in, and this also helped us a lot in putting some of the conceptual maps together. Here are just examples of what we drew. Like, for example, a typical intersection, it could be either all green, the trail running all the way into the major intersection, or it could have some kind of mixed-use development at the corner. And other ideas of how, even when there is development, it cannot be a contiguous, it cannot be a one huge. So how there could be plazas and green space, and in this, as you can see, that the trail can still continue, and if it comes to an intersection, you can kind of bridge over rather than going at grade. So these are just some alternative conceptual ideas that we shared. So out of the charrette and those 3 days of studio that we had, there were some important outcomes that came out. And just to quantify them real quick, one was trail shall be continuous throughout the entire corridor. There should be no development, only trail behind single-family homes. The trail shall have amenities like pocket parks, biking, walking paths, benches, fountains, shade trees, landscaping, etc. The kind of amenities are. Homes should be well buffered. Even when there's a trail, they should be well buffered. And there was some desire for some folks that live abutting the trail to have to purchase the buffer area. And also no new streets or motorized access to cut through. So no new street to cut through the trail. And development within the vicinity of Bird Road only, like you also heard the commissioner speak about. So this is the plan that is based on those recommendations. And I know it's kind of very far to see, so I'm going to now zoom down to each section, the 4, 5, and 6, 6, 5, and 4 sections that are outlined here. But real quick, so that you can understand and you don't get confused and you can orient yourself. Again, this is the Dadeland Mall area. That's the Dadeland Mall, and that's 80th Street right here, and State Road 878. This is Sunset, Miller, Bird Road, and you can see the 80 Bonds Park right here. Again, when you see this green with the white, that's just indicative of where it's all complete trail, all green trail, like this is. And the orange marks an area for development. But again, with the trail access. So even where there's orange, there's a trail access that's going to be running through it. And also, anything that you see in this dark or light gray or grayish white next to the trail itself, the 100-foot right-of-way of the Ludlam Trail is this. But everything that you see on both sides are actually building footprints of existing buildings. So you can really see from that. That was important so that you can really see which are the single-family homes, where there is commercial or industrial, or there are apartments, etc. So that is, in short, that is the graphics. And now I'm going to try and start zooming down to each section, starting with Sunset. Again, to orient you, that's the Snapper Creek Expressway. That's the canal right there. Metro rail station right here. That in dotted white is the Ludlam Trail. 80th Street is right here, and Sunset Drive, 72nd, is right here. And the plan recommends all green, as you can see. Again, These are single-family homes, as you can see, existing single-family homes. But the only area that we looked at is within these two spaces. This area falls under, the Kendall, downtown Kendall recommendations already. So that was not part of the study. And we started from 80th, and as you can see, it's all green. It's all green trail. Again, that's indicative of that. But also to make sure that there's whatever development happens on this, based on the downtown Kendall, there will be some connection to the underlying. I think that was very important that we heard during the charrette, that there should be some kind of a green, the trail should link itself to the underlying. So moving on, now the next is going to be from Sunset to Miller. Again, that's now this time the Sunset is here, and we have moved over to Miller, 56th. And I think that's one of the schools, the South and Middle Community School. And this is where we are right now. Senior minor senior high school, this is where we are. So again, this time too, it's all green. It's a green trail all along. Just going to, again, 56, 72nd, Sunset. We are oriented at this point, right? I mean, and then again, moving on, this time we have Miller on this side. This is Miller. This is the school that we are in right now. And all the way to Bird Road, that's 80 Barnes Park right now. The short plan recommends that there are single-family homes at 48, so it stops before that. That's the development area with a green trail that indicates that the trail will continue through the development, whatever that development is. And that's the green. That's the green, and right there it also continues into the District 6 area. That's all green trail, and this development could go up to 6 stories. That's 80 Barnes Park right now.
What's the blue area?
That's a canal. There are 2 lakes. Yeah. The Ludlam Trail itself is from here to here, only this thin. So this thin. All that you see on the west and east is all existing. We could not draw in all the building footprints for everything, but there are buildings all the way here and here. But we wanted to make sure that we actually indicated what kind of buildings, the size of the buildings that are on both sides. So you can see where there's single family, and you can see where it's industrial and commercial. Right? Now, moving back to the master plan, the entire 3 miles of the corridor, you can see, now we also make sure that we quantify how much is going to be all green and how much is going to be development. So for these 3 miles from here, from 80th all the way up to Bird Road, there's 80% is all green trail, and there's 20% of development with trail. The trail continues to the development also. And that's something that could be part of the caveat that goes with the development. And for the next step, because what does this plan mean? What is the next steps? That is, this plan is going to go through. I'm going to ask Mark Warner to walk us through the CDMP application process. Mark?
Good evening. Again, my name is Mark Warner. I'm the Assistant Director for Planning for RER, Miami-Dade County. So, potentially over 80% trail. Big difference from the last application. So the board did direct the county staff to file another amendment in the May cycle for the trail. Our staff initial recommendations report will be published in August, so we'll be working on a text and probably a land use map amendment to designate these different sections, development versus trail. Public hearings. You all remember the public hearings from the last time. Again, there will be 3 community council meetings in 8, 10, and 12 during the month of September. The Planning Advisory Board hearing will be in October, and then the Board of County Commissioners would have a hearing in November to address transmittal of this application, not for adoption, but for transmittal, because this is a large-scale amendment. It would come back to the County Commission in February of 2016 to take any kind of formal final action assuming it gets transmitted during the month of November. So that in a nutshell is pretty much the schedule that we've laid out. So staff will be working, between May and during the summer months to come up with the actual language in the actual land use amendment that staff would be recommending for this proposal for this area. So with that,
any questions? Yes.
You were talking about 48th Street to Bird Road, that it could be a special taxing district. What do you want to put in there? Not what are you going to, but what do you want to put into that section?
The section from 48 to 80th?
To Bird.
From 48 to Bird. Well, right now, as you can, let me go back to this one. It's a very general area in terms of what the development is going to happen. The caveat is going to be only up to 6 stories. But that will, this is the first step here. We want to get the consensus out of this. And based on this, the application, as you just heard from Mark, is going to be filed based on this. But as to what kind of development, the details of it, that will have to be worked out.
What are the 6 stories? Is this industrial? Is this homes? Is this what?
It's going to be mixed use probably, residential, commercial, offices. Okay. You're saying that story, the up to 6 story, you want to talk about that?
Good evening, Nathan Kogan with Development Services. And what we did an analysis. We did an analysis of the existing zoning. We also looked at our comp plan at several policies and looked at what mixed-use development typically entails. And that entails a maximum density of 36 units per acre. And looking at the relative size of the parcel and how it would fit, it would be appropriate for a 6-story. Anything less than that, you start now reducing the density significantly, and it really becomes unable to, it doesn't become an investment for anybody to do anything in that area. So when we looked at the comments from the community and the strong desire to take development away from the entire trail, we had to push some of that density to the nodes. And if you go all the way up the corridor at the intersections at 40th, 24th, 8th Street and Flagler, where we have those 6-story, and too far to the north where there is no residential, up to 12 stories at the Blue Lagoon area. But that was looked at to pull as much potential development away from single-family neighborhoods. That was the rationale. Well, we've always alluded that we would not recommend. Remember, we're taking the information that we gathered here, that there was a strong desire for no development behind single-family homes. When we did our analysis, we looked at 44 to 48, and then 48 to Bird Road, is the adjacent land use is either multi-family residential or commercial industrial, and there's some vacant parcels.
Somewhere up to 41 units per acre.
But also, I thought where do you put this Bruce Street for this development? Because that's going right up to a private residential neighborhood.
Remember, understood. And
Yeah, we can't hear the question. Could you repeat her question back to us?
I said, what is the plan for the through streets, like at 48th Street? Because there's a private residential neighborhood right here, and we don't want more traffic coming through the
We're actually not through street lights. stops. This is how it is right now. You're talking about this one? That's how it is right now. You're not showing it.
Yeah, just to reiterate, as part of any policy, we have clear indication from the residents that we don't want that connection. Remember, and just I want to reiterate what this plan is. This is a simplistic land use policy. Every piece of property in the county has to have some type of land use designation. It doesn't determine what the project looks like. It doesn't determine where the roads go. It gives an indication of how land can be used. That step, the next step after that, when we get into zoning, is when we do the heavy traffic analysis and have additional public hearings examining the location of these roads. But what we want to set up is a framework where we can ensure that most of the trail, or recommend that most of the trail, because of what we heard from you, is green, and there are pockets, some pockets of appropriate development.
Yeah, question. I'll try to speak loud. Is the right-of-way here wide enough to put a two-lane street going through it and put buildings along that two-lane street? The right-of-way here is not very wide.
Correct. Most of the access will have to be from the major roadways. We're not going to allow any potential any connection through the existing residential. So through Bird Road, as we move through zoning, they'll have to provide an internal connection. Remember, these widths, you're looking at 700-800 feet. It's not that long, so the connection will be one main connection from Bird Road.
Yeah, but the question is that going to, one main connection, is that going to be a two-lane street going down the right-of-way?
At this point, it would be undetermined. What we can determine now is that whatever the developer or the property owner at the time can build is limited in their density and must provide the pedestrian and bicycle trail. When it comes to the finite development, we can't answer those questions because that goes through, as any development does, through a regular zoning process.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm concerned about the impact of increasing the density and this number of stories. I can tell you from personal experience, there's like BF Marine, they tried to get a 10-story building a few years back, and we fought it in our community and won because it would be spot zoning. However, once you open that Pandora's box, everybody along Bird Road corridor is going to try to build bigger buildings. What are we going to do about that?
You know, ultimately, and that's a very good question, and ultimately it comes down to the land use policy that would be proposed, which targets specifically a corridor type plan, which takes special considerations to this land. Just because one area receives or goes through an amendment doesn't necessarily mean it gets a precedent for another area. It doesn't mean that when we do an analysis, we do look at compatibility. It doesn't mean that, well, all of a sudden there's this area that's developing in a certain way that it automatically translates.
The question is very simple. What is the geographic boundaries of the proposed special taxing district?
I can't speak to any special taxing district. I don't know if one would ever be set up. I don't believe we mentioned it. I think one of the questions were related to special taxing district. This is an exercise in land use policy only. It's not a zoning application. It's a very simplistic land use plan. Funding, property ownership. I know there's a lot of discussion on that. That is not within our purview or expertise per se. We're just reiterating and compiling what we felt we gathered here to propose a comp plan amendment. So the special taxing is not part of this. Not at this point, no sir.
Yes, we should keep in mind that trying to merge into westbound or eastbound traffic on Bird Road and community suicide coming from English High Street going across very dense area, businesses and more people, it's going to add another stop gap. It's really impossible to cross Third Road most of the time. And to turn west, turn into that area, this would be another suicidal.
Understood. Understood and noted.
Can you speak up, please? Or head to the mic?
So I was just explaining that I was here for the Charrette with about 25 of my neighbors who live at the Oasis condominiums around 47th Street, and we all pretty clearly spoke and stated that we wanted to see a greenway up to 44th Street. So we're just curious as to why we're not seeing development in that area.
So do that again, up to 40. When we analyze, okay, sorry. When we analyze and look at what we saw from the south to the north as collectively, and the strong desire from the residents to pull as much, well, the strong desire for no development behind single family, we looked for areas where there would be that potential development. We had to seek those, and that's from 48 to 44, where we had industrial on one side and multifamily. We felt that an appropriate area for the development.
And even if you see, it doesn't go all the way to 48 actually, because there's single family, it stops.
Excuse me. I have a question about the Green Trail area. If the possibility for people to purchase the 35 feet right behind their house goes through, don't you run into a situation where it's 35 feet on that side, 35 feet on this side, there's only 30 feet left in the middle? And that's kind of a question one. But also, what happens with the homes that don't purchase that? So is it the trail going into this yard, back out? How would that work exactly?
Again, we're looking at the trail as a whole. We understand that there's an interest for some of the homeowners to purchase. That, again, is outside of the purview of our land use analysis. There's negotiations between the developer and the mayor's office, since he's the chief administrator on land purchases. There's discussions, I know, with the homeowner and the developer. Those things need to be worked out before. There's also the Parks Department who may have a desire for a certain width.
But yeah, should that be doable? I'm wondering how that could...
I couldn't tell you. I'm not a parks expert. I don't know how wide a trail should be, but we know that at this point, the entire corridor is designated as green. And that's the policy we're trying to get
So
across.
it would either be very narrow green or it would be wide green.
What we've heard, what we're proposing is, again, a land use policy that has a 100-foot wide green. And we do have someone from Parks that could discuss.
Oh, wonderful.
So, can you wave to me?
I'd like to hear the question. Can you answer the mic, please?
I would like to know if you expect all of the residents along there to buy all this property, or is it going to be owned by the state or the metro?
Again, we're not deciding or passing any judgment on ownership. We're looking this from a planning perspective and a land use perspective. Ownership, purchasing is a discussion for the... Understood. This is the land use law.
Sorry, we live directly on the trail.
Yes.
How much gap are there between one side of the backyard and the other? 100, 150 feet?
It's
around 100. Most of it is 100. There's some areas where it's slightly less. And slightly more, but it's approximately 100 feet.
What is the structure of the trail? Is this considered a linear park, or how's it going to connect the swath of streets? Is it thought as part of that budget going on to residents so that you get
Early on, when the developers or the property owners did proffer an amendment, there was some discussion about bridging, and we'd like to take that in consideration. Again, that comes in with how the connectivity of the trail and more into the zoning aspect, but absolutely. I think that's
Bridge to go all the way through, all the way up to.
that's undetermined at this point. That's undetermined. Where the funding is again not part of our purview. This is again it's a land use policy question.
Is this really ready to go to the as an amendment? Because it seems really sketchy to me that we don't really know what it is you're asking for. You know, I mean, for the green part of the trail, it could be a lot of different things, but it doesn't really have that much effect. But whether you build 6 stories, whether all these traffic things that aren't taken into consideration now, I mean, they're going to push it through for this amendment cycle, and to me, it's not ready. It's just being shoved down our throats, and what do we get out of it? Get an amendment that we maybe are not going to be able to live with because we're neighbors.
From staff was mandated by the Board of County Commissioners to prepare a land use amendment. And we have to do that for this cycle, and Mark outlined the timing that we have to do it. As part of that amendment process, there's an exorbitant amount of data and analysis. So there is the traffic component, there's an environmental component, there's a land use component, which is prepared and analyzed, published, and then vetted through the various community councils, planning advisory board, and then formally the Board of County Commissioners. So it's not just we take this and put it up. No, it's the creation of very specific language, which everybody here will be part of that process through the public hearing and will see, as well as all the data and analysis gathered to make those policy recommendations. Again, this is untypical of a normal procedure. Typically, the developer or the property owner would come in with an application. We would review their application and provide recommendations, which they did. In this case, it's come back. It's fell upon the county staff to prepare. We have no choice but to prepare it, with the caveat that we reach out to the community and base our policies on the results of these charrettes. So I can assure you there will be data analysis for your review as we move forward. This is not just a plan. This plan is to get us in the frame of mind to drive us for that CDP amendment. And that CDP amendment is the data and analysis that you're looking for. I believe you're looking for.
Go to the mic. Go to the microphone.
Everybody wants to hear, so next speakers, you guys want to just come up over here.
Don't you need mic?
Yeah. Then you guys can make a line and we can just go next.
Good evening. I'm Monty Child among the Friends of the Ludlam Trail. There's some of us here tonight, Frankie Ruiz. But a couple of points I'd like to make. The county has standards for trails that I believe are of high quality and should be adhered to even where there is development. Namely, they prescribe 35 feet as a minimum with preferred widths of 50 to 100 feet. So even though there are buildings, those are standards that I think as the county to keep in mind. Second of all, we've been hearing a lot of concerns about traffic, and of course, that's a very sensitive issue. Now, one of the things that as a county you can do is be very progressive and understand that if this is a development for biking and transit and wellness, that there are constructive things like car share that basically reduce the requirement of parking by a lot. I've been doing some research, and one car can service 10 households. So that's one constructive way that you can be progressive, and so that's important. Thank you.
Yes, I understand that. I'm on the west side of that area, basically around 44th, 46th. You're saying, huh? Oh, okay. Only two throughs. There's a through street of Burr, through street of Miller, right? Nowhere else. Not 48, not 46. What about access? Anywhere else in between? Is there going to be provided access? Right now, there's no access in. You can't get in, at least from the west side. I don't know about this side. Yes. Yeah, to get in midway instead of having to go to Burr and all the way back down, and to get off all the way to Miller. That's a pretty long stretch. What about access at 46 or 48? Is that being taken into consideration? Well, anything. Just access, period. There will be access. Oh, no, I understand that. But there will be a way to get in.
Yes, hi. I'm going to repeat probably something that has already been said by a couple of people, but I happen to be in that area just north of 48th Street. And I thought we were extremely clear. Even though we're not single-family homes, we have quite a few homeowners that live there. And we were extremely clear that we wanted to keep it green all the way to 44th Street. And I'm very disappointed that, to hear this. I'd like to see if there's anything that we can do to keep the green corridor.
Well, we are still listening, and this is part of the consensus building process. So your comments today are not on deaf ears. This is part of the process.
I'm from District 6, but I walked around. I just wanted to tell you what I have to say about the Ludlam Trail, but towards the very north end of the Blue Lagoon, I invite anybody to walk around up around that west side of that Blue Lagoon Lake. It's absolutely beautiful. And if you've ever been to the back part of Robert King High Park, there would be a big office building up to 12 stories tall that would be on the east side of that back part of that park. So I know that's a valuable piece of land because it's lakeside and it's all completely the west side of that lake there. But if you just top those Australian pine trees and put a nice trail with some picnic tables on that north side of the Ludlam Trail, it would be absolutely beautiful up there. I know it's not District 7, but it does have to do with the Ludlam Trail.
Hi, my name is Sam Van Leer. I'm with Urban Paradise Guild, and I can recognize just how much work you guys have put in, and I do appreciate it. I'm looking for some clarity with regard to the development with trail access. What level of pollination corridor is going to be mandated for these sections for butterflies? Because I mean, the highest best use for this whole Ludlam Trail is combining human uses like the walking and biking and all that with butterfly pollination corridors that could prevent extinctions of butterflies.
Those are again details in terms of like even when we talk about biking, for example, or walking, as to how wide that path would be, if it's going to be together, and of course it has to be separated from bikers and walkers. So those are details that will have to come later. So at this point, we don't know how much or how wide that would be. It's going to be together, it's going to be separated, there's going to be landscaping in between. But those are amenities that we heard loud and clear, including the butterflies and bat habitat and all that. That's definitely part of the recommendations that's already in the maps that you saw before, with all the details.
So
points, but that's part of the property, that's part for those maps, absolutely. Yeah.
So this will be pointed out.
Yeah. That's going to be definitely, that's part of the charrette that came out from the recommendation body.
Eric Goldberg, BPAC Chair and Green Mobility Network. Two things. One is that the minimum width for a combined bike ped trail is at least 12 feet. And you've got to have a couple of feet on the side to allow for the handlebars and things like that. So, you know, the absolute minimum with absolutely no landscaping is 15 feet. The other part is, in the area between the M-Path, which is right underneath Metro Rail, and 80th Street, there has to be a corridor, and there are sections that are owned by FEC, particularly the section immediately next to the Dadeland North building. That section runs right up to the building, and you need at least a 15-foot corridor through that area to get the path through. I realize that it wasn't part of your, yes, right, but that needs to be addressed in the report, because it doesn't do any good to have the rest of the path and no connection to the M-Path. So that should be addressed in the report, even though it was outside the scope. Yes, that section there. Thank you very much.
He was talking about this connection right here, and as you can see there, so that connection. Yeah, so that's definitely part of the recommendation. Any questions?
This is a two-part question. And the first one is, we want to go on the trail, but we have to drive that way. Where do we park? Are you going to have parking lots? I mean, right here is the school. There's no room for a parking lot, but you have to take that into consideration. And the other thing, if we're building a 6-story building or that, what is this going to cause in the impact on the elementary, junior, and senior high schools? Not only with students, but with traffic around the schools.
That's absolutely a valid question. Like Nathan pointed out, those are before even any kind of a development plan is proposed way down the line. Those are things that are vetted before it goes through. All the departments are going to be looking at that in terms of schools, etc. Absolutely.
Hi, I live on the trail. I live on the trail. Okay, you're applauding now, but in a second you may not be so happy with me. I do not want the FEC to be building houses behind everybody. Okay, we have to give a little here. They're on our side. They're doing everything they can to make it as nice for us as they can. These people are entitled to build somewhere. Otherwise, I'm going to probably have to come up with 30,000. The Ramseys are going to come up with about 80,000 because they have, 3 times as much property as I have. I would love that they just put a bazillion-dollar trail through there and there's no building anywhere. But that's not going to happen. So we need to be realistic here. Your choice is they can go and pull permits, and just like at Dadeland, that the zoning wasn't there for that little enclosed area, and they built a city. I mean, it's kind of nice. I could live there. I kind of like what they did. But these people would be allowed to go and get their own zoning in that area. And it's not going to be exactly the same as what I have and what you have. So we need to give a little bit here. I'm sorry.
All right. Excuse me.
No, I own a house along the trail.
All right, let's be respectful. Everybody, please come down. It's okay. You have to respect everyone.
Okay, so I'm going to try to clarify a few things. My name is Lisa Vale. I have spoken to there's 131 houses that abut the trail, and I have met 98 of those people, door to door. So I can tell you what these people who live on this trail from 48th Street to 80th Street want. Not only can I tell you what they want, I have it in writing, I have it confirmed, because I've spoken to these people. And I happen to think that these are the people we need to be listening to because it's our backyard. I understand that everybody in the community has an opinion, and you know, that's fine, but I really believe well, I'm saying my house abuts the trail, so it is my backyard. I'm not saying, wait, I'm not, but let me clarify. What I'm saying is, when I did the survey for Commissioner Suarez, he asked me to ask everybody, are you willing, in order to fund buying this land, are you willing to buy up to 30 feet so that we can have this 40-foot trail? And we had 95 out of 131 people commit to the point of $5.5 million. So I do know what these people want. And I'm just saying, whether that happens, whether that doesn't happen, there's many technicalities and there will be many steps to that. And I'm only speaking because I met with Joan today, and I respect what Oasis feels. It's their backyard, and they have a right to their opinion. But please understand that when you're making decisions or you're stating your opinions, there are people who live along this trail. Please think about us, please.
Yeah, right.
Cooperate and they can build, and the FEC can build their original, they don't get zoning change, and build. Sorry, if we cannot work this out, if this doesn't happen in some form or fashion, and they go and get a building permit, because they are entitled to go and get a building permit. Yes, they can. The building. No, the building department will make the same changes that they made. They already told me they would. I talked to them.
Okay. Is my house going to be flooded? I would like to know.
No, but
I would like to know, is my house going to be flooded while they make another building?
I just want to say to you
I
that
live right behind. I live on 69th Avenue on 50th Street. Okay? How do you feel if a house or 6 feet of a building is looking over me? I have a child.
where do you? Let me just say. Can I just? All I want to make one statement. When they get a building permit and can build behind us, their original plans, all that traffic is still there. That's my point. That traffic is still there.
Okay. I think that part of the problem is, like, we have seen the vision of people from 80th to 48th. Obviously, you're going to get a nice green trail that's beautiful. But we do also have to think of everybody else. And the group that lives between 48th and 40th was very clear about wanting potentially to start the big development starting at 44th. That's been said. And I think that when the group from 48th through 80th keeps saying, we want our yards to be completely clean, give them your yards for our yards, that's hard for everybody else to take. And we understand that they need to make money. We understand that they need to develop some portion of that land to make this happen. So don't think that we don't. We just want it to be a little nicer in our yards too, because we also have homes. They might not be as big, but they're nice.
Have you explained how big this building is? 6 feet high, how wide and how high?
Up to 6 stories.
And how long?
Yeah.
So how many units, how many people are in here?
We don't have that detail.
If you think they can't change the zoning without, it's only 100 feet wide. It needs, how about here? Okay, and you have to, if you build a building, you have to supply parking. There is no cross streets here. And there's no electricity, there's no sewer, and I think you'll have to be putting all that in, right? Now, where is Bird Road? Is there two buildings you're building on either side? How? Is that 50 feet of building and the other side is 50 feet building? And you have 15 feet that is going to be taken off. So that'll leave you 35 feet per building. It's not very wide.
Yeah, it's only 100 foot, out of which all those details will have to be absolutely worked in.
Because technically, if you can't do that over there, and for those amount of buildings, you're going to supply blacktop all the way to 80th Street from where? From Northwest 7th Street? Are we kidding those two buildings? Is that what you're doing? What are you doing? Are you going to keep going on with development and we haven't decided how it's going to be blacktop? That's what we want. We want these people that are on our streets bicycling every Sunday to have somewhere safe to go.
I hear you.
I just want to say I think there's a little bit of confusion because the agreement is, and Flagler is agreeing to, nothing behind the single-family home, which is wonderful. No one wants any of that in their backyard. Now this area over here, between Bird Road, right here, there's single-family homes here and the townhouses here, but the land in between is zoned for townhouses and BU2, which means they can go up. There's a problem there. The developer there wants to go 9 stories. We're attending the zoning meeting right now. Yeah, right there next to the post office. So if you're upset about that, I can tell you that it is May 21st. You have to be there at 9:30 in the morning. I can't promise what time it will be heard. Plan to take the day off. But Mr. Menendez has a proposal for a 9-story building and a parking lot behind that. So that would be directly behind those single-family homes before 44th Street, okay? We're negotiating with him. It's been deferred, so they are going to be meeting with the neighbors. If anybody would like to be involved with any of that and what you would like in that area, please see me. But that area is built already for townhouses, so that takes you to 44th. Now, I don't know what those other buildings are, so I couldn't say, but it's between 44th and 48th. Okay. I have a friend that lives in a neighborhood on the north side in District 6, and there's a dead road there, like 44th is. They cannot come through. We're not adding more streets. That would make the trail not as safe. We want less roads, not more roads. So whatever traffic they do work out with this construction, it should all be directed on the industrial side. And it might make a nice connection to that whole Bird Road Design District over there, cafes. I don't know what they're planning on building. I don't know. I'm assuming I'm not the applicant. I don't own the property. I have no idea I don't even know if the applicant knows what he's going to put there. I don't know if the applicant is going to sell the property as you can build a 6-story building here. And, you get what these people are trying to find out how that we can work together. The property owner owns the property. He wants to develop the property. As part of the negotiation, they're gonna make way for a continuous trail. The trail will go from the airport basically to Dadeland. It will be a great commuter path. Unfortunately, it seems like we have to give a little to get this done. Otherwise, maybe it would save nothing, and maybe everybody would like that. But that's not what's going to happen. Right. Okay, please come to the zoning hearing. It's May 21st, because Mr. Menendez is planning that 9-story building also.
Hi, this is kind of a question. Is it possible to include in the land use plan provisions for bridges across the major roads? Can you put regulations not just for the bridges, but for ramping for the bridges, and for also specific guidelines for the, do you intend to put specific guidelines for the types of paths, pedestrian and bicycle paths?
Mark, this question is for you. Is there provision for adding bridges or overpasses at the intersections? At the major intersections, if there's something that can be added into the language about provisions to add overpass bridges at major intersections.
I think that kind of detail isn't going to be specific in the land use plan map amendment. I think that's going to have to be discussed as part of the zoning and perhaps part of the platting process, looking at each intersection to see what kind of treatment would be best and what could be afforded, in terms of accomplishing that continuity across all of those major roadways.
Just so that I understand, that comes later.
It'll come later on.
My question is, everyone in Dade County can use this, is this correct? Then why isn't the county paying for it? Why are you trying to suck more out of the people that live around there that maybe don't want it? I don't think this is fair. I think if the whole county can use it, the whole county can afford to pay for it.
There you go.
That question was about funding, and absolutely at this point, we have no idea how any of this gets funded. So that's a funding question, and absolutely that's something that will have to be, addressed.
How you doing? We have a unique piece of property here that goes from the airport down to Dadeland. This easement is about 60 feet wide. We have a problem here with traffic, and we don't need any more development. And a lot of these things they're building now are out of character with the neighborhood. It looks terrible. Look at West Miami and what they did, building that monstrosity right next to the road there. My other problem here is a lot of people weren't notified. They said that they went a quarter mile off of the track. Everybody in this district should have been notified about what's going on here, because this is going to be a lot of money. I used to lease land from Florida East Coast Railroad up by Everglades Lumber, and I can tell you they're not going to give this away. We're talking multiple millions of dollars, maybe $100 million or something, because they're not going to give it away. We could have something called a light track going through there. There's plenty of room for a bicycle trail, a walk trail. You could have a light track, which would be like a trolley system. It wouldn't be Metro Rail or nothing like that, but it could be something where people could go there, jump on the, go to Dadeland, or if he had to, they could have a Metro Rail station up on the south end of the airport. Look, I didn't interrupt you when you were talking, man. I didn't interrupt you, did I? You can keep your button to yourself. I'm an American citizen like you are, and I can have an opinion. This is my opinion. Can I finish, ma'am? Thank you. We could have a Metro Rail station up towards the airport. I don't know if you guys have tried to get on the air, go into that airport lately, but that's another thing where you can't find parking, and it costs a lot of money to do this. And if you take a taxi over there, you're talking $50. So we could have a Metro Rail station on the north end of it. The tracks are still there. On the south end of it, we could have like a trolley system. We could have a bicycle path. And we could have a greenway, or it should be a greenway. And I'm against any ideas of development and 10-story or 9-story buildings and all this stuff. Thank you.
Okay.
I'd just like to say that we might not all agree on what we should do, but we are each one of us citizens, and the railroad is treated like one citizen. And the truth of the matter is, if you look at the history, Florida East Coast Railroad has made billions of dollars on land that we gave them along the East Coast. They developed all in the Panhandle. And whatever they get from us down here on this little parcel of land, they should be very grateful that we gave them a start, give them a corporate boost up, and enough of this corporate welfare. If we all agree that we don't want something, then show up at a meeting and let the commissioners know. That's the best we can do, because if the commissioners don't do what you want to do, then you know what to do. And if the railroad has their way with us, if they threaten us, scare us, break us up, say, well, we'll sell you yours and your part and individualize us and make us not so powerful, that's how the thing will happen, tumble, it won't work. The best way is if we stick together and agree on some general thing, maybe development, and stick together, and that's our strength.
Good evening. My name is Peggy Brodeur, and I am your community council representative for this area. And I'm so happy that so many of you have turned up. I just wanted you to know that when this came before us, we turned it down in its rough edges. All of us, we turned it down, and we want you to know that we're working very hard for you as a community. But those of you who say to give a little, to get a little, be careful. You have to stay very firm. In looking over the SEC over the years, I have seen an organization that has not donated anything to our city. They are not helping with the runs, they're not helping with any of the children problems. They're not a participant in this city, and I want you to know that. They just go, they do what they do, and they go. You are left here holding the bag. You have invested years, you own properties and things like that. So band together, don't be afraid, help one another, and be very careful. Be very careful with this as a corporate giant. This corporate giant, which is a division of a railroad, is the building arm of the railroad. It also has a partner in Wall Street called Fortis, F-O-R-T-I-S, that they get funding from. So I just want you to know that those of you, don't splinter up and fight with each other. This is a very strong company. You must be united and get along and try to come up with a united front. And you must go before the commission. It's uncomfortable, it's miserable, it's not easy to get down there. And that's the reason they have community councils, was for you people to come and have your zoning board before us. But the commission has cut out the community council part of it, where you could come. We used to meet at the library. You could come and talk to us, and we would listen to your comments. So now, if you want to do anything, you have to get down there, and you have to give up either a day's work, a day's pay, or something. But I think this is kind of important. And I think if you make this a priority, and you all stick together, and you come up with a bit of a plan, you will win. And you'll do yourselves a favor by preserving your community.
I do want to say that we've come a long way since the beginning, and I've been involved since the very, very beginning. I went to that first town hall meeting where they turned it down. And at that time, they were going to build behind all of our houses, is what they wanted. And I feel like we have come a long way. They have really turned around. And so, I don't know, I think we do have to give the applicants some credit, because they have turned around, and I've seen it happen. I started out fighting with them heavy duty, and I have seen them come around because we have been united. So yes, it's very important for us to stay united. But I do want to acknowledge that they have come around. The only thing we are arguing about right now is from 48th Street to 44th. We have come from arguing about the whole tract to one little area that I think can be negotiated. And Joan and Dennis have met with the commissioner, and they are talking about that area, and I think it will get resolved. I just hope that everybody can stay united in a good way, not everybody fighting and trying to prove a point that way.
I think somewhere in there you also thanked the county staff. This is the last question. After that, we'll break up. So we'll be here to ask more of the questions.
Thank you. My name is Frankie Ruiz. I am one of the, founding members of the Friends of the Ludlam Trail, along with Tony and several others that couldn't be here today. I did want to kind of echo what you were saying, Lisa. We have come a long way with the, obviously, the landowners, as well as with the county. We do thank you for that. We, as Friends of the Ludlam Trail, do support between 40th and 44th development. It's something that we've talked a lot about, and we certainly support that. I wanted to add one more thing, and I know that everyone's talking about giving and so forth, and it's not in my backyard. I don't live anywhere near the trail. I have to confess that. But I'm involved in other greenway projects throughout the community, and it does transform an entire county. And I think where we're at now, which is basically a complete greenway with some development, is going to accomplish that. And it is a private landowner that does own the property, and we've been working with them. In fact, about a month ago, they all went up with us to Tallahassee. Some of the residents, Lisa was part of this, and in Tallahassee we had a lot of success. Your representatives were extremely receptive to the idea of an acquisition, and it's my understanding we're close to having at least $3.5 million allocated at the state level. So I just want to let you know I'm not part of I don't live on the actual trail. We went up there with a group of very passionate neighbors, along with FEC, and I think we accomplished a lot with them to our side. So I wanted to thank them for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Before the close out, we'll close there now, but there's staff there. You can break out into groups and you can ask more questions. The map is also up here. You can come up here, look at it if you want. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.